Question that I'm frequently asked is, how much does a divorce cost in Ireland? That's the topic of this episode. Hey, it's Terry Gorry, and this is the Irish Law and Small Business podcast. Take a look at how much does it cost to get a divorce in Ireland. This is a common question that I come across very often in my daily work, and it really depends. I know that might sound like a cop-out, but it's not a cop-out. If I explain to you that a divorce can be granted relatively cheaply, relatively efficiently and quickly and so on, if the parties, for example, are in agreement. So you may have a mature couple who have grown apart, who have perhaps lived apart for many years and who never did anything about getting a divorce, but now want to put their affairs in order from the point of view of perhaps having new partners in their lives. Perhaps they're making a will and there's the question of the spouse still having a claim on the estate and so on. A mature couple, 10 or 15 years perhaps living apart in complete agreement, that is going to be a relatively straightforward situation if they can agree terms, and there's no reason why they can't agree terms if they're living apart for 5, 10, 15 years. They're mature, the family or children, if there was any in the relationship, in the marriage, have grown up and gone and are living apart or living in their own, independently in their own houses and so on. So that's a very specific type of case where there's agreement. You're looking at probably around about anything between $2,500 is probably a fair average. It's a fair average for that type of a divorce. On the other hand, you have a situation where you might have a young couple whose marriage hasn't worked out. There's a young family, there is minor children, and there's a lot of perhaps bitterness and blame and anger and disappointment and so on, and there may well be issues about a mortgage, about who's going to take on the mortgage. Is the bank going to be agreeable to one party taking the mortgage over? Can one of the partners, for example, raise finance to buy out the other partner? Is there agreement about access and maintenance of the children and so on? That sort of a situation which is relatively fresh, where the breakdown might be relatively fresh, notwithstanding the fact that you can only get a divorce where you've lived apart for 2 out of the last 3 years. That's going to be a different situation where there may well be quite a bit of correspondence, quite a bit of anger, quite a bit of contention, quite a bit of controversy. And if that's the situation, then you're looking at solicitors on both sides writing a lot of letters, perhaps bringing motions, in other words applications to the court, circuit court, to get discovery of bank statements. You're looking at perhaps disputes and contention about affidavits of means, affidavits of welfare, maintenance, custody, access, and so on. In that situation, you're looking at far more than, say, $2,500 for a divorce. You're looking at anything from probably $7,500 upwards. And so how much a course or a divorce is going to cost will really come down to how agreeable the parties are, how many trips is going to be required to go to court, how much correspondence has to be done by the solicitors for both sides, how much time is spent on the matter, how much complexity there is, and so on. So how much does a divorce cost in Ireland will really be determined to a great extent by the parties themselves and by the degree to which they agree various matters. But you're looking at probably around about $2,500 or thereabouts for divorce, where the parties are agreed, there is agreed terms, and it's simply a question of issuing the family law civil bill and ultimately going to court to have a divorce granted on consent on agreed terms. That's probably around about $2,500. The other one then, as I say, how long is a piece of string? How long does the dispute go on? How long does it take to resolve the issues? Then you're getting into serious cost, serious money, and every time a motion has to be brought to court, obviously solicitors and barristers and so on have to attend and perhaps give evidence or at least make submissions and so on. So that is generally the situation. As I say, a divorce could cost you anything, but you're looking at the lower end, probably around about £2,500 grand, provided the parties are in agreement and have come to an agreement, have come to an arrangement as to the terms on which the divorce is granted. It's something that we would encourage strongly, because let's face it, if a divorce is protracted and very intense in terms of emotions and anger and so on and so forth, bottom line is the person or the parties are still going to end up with a divorce, but it's going to cost a lot more money because the solicitors and the legal teams have to be paid for their time essentially. And as I say, if there's discovery motions, if there's pouring through bank statements, if there's a lot of correspondence, a lot of back and forth in terms of letter writing and so on, then it's going to add up. It's going to add up.
Thanks a lot for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode.